Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monsi and this is my mid-year book freakout tag. This is a little overdue, but if you watched my most recent vlog, you would know that I moved in early July and I spent most of the month unpacking and getting settled into my new place. So I didn't have the capacity to film and edit this video at the appropriate time, but I'm here now and I thought, better late than never. What I love about the mid-year freakout tag is that while there are a standard set of questions that people tend to stick to, you will notice slight variations from creator to creator. People tweak it to fit their reading, so they'll add questions, they'll remove questions, they'll slightly alter questions, and I love that. I love that you don't know exactly what you're gonna get into when you click on one of these videos. I'm gonna be doing the same. I've pulled together the questions that are the most relevant to my reading and the ones that I'm most excited to talk about. First up is a very open-ended question. How is your reading going so far this year? I would say when it comes to quality, things are going very well, especially as of late. I've had so many 4- and 5-star reads. It's been fantastic. More to come in a future reading wrap up. But when it comes to quantity, this has been my slowest reading year in comparison to recent years past. For reference, today is August 7th and I have read 22 books. Goodreads tells me that I am 9 books behind my reading goal. And I had put my goal at 52 books for the year. That's less than I've read in the last 2 or 3 years, and it averages out to about 1 book a week, which I thought was super attainable, but I'm not on track to hit that. And I feel pretty unbothered by it because I know that there are going to be times in the future where I read more than what I'm currently reading, and I know that there's going to be times when I read less. But at the end of the day, I am still reading more than the average American, so I'm pretty happy with that. The next question is the one people probably care the most about, and it's, what's the best book you've read this year? I have had a few 5-star reads this year, and 2 of them have made me cry, which is absolutely insane. Prior to 2025, it had been years since I had cried while reading a book. It just doesn't happen very easily for me. I cry way more easily when I'm watching something, either a movie or TV show. And the book that would have to be my favorite, and this might be recency bias, but I really don't think it is, Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid does it for me. She has never missed. I have never disliked a book by her. Out of her books that I've read, Atmosphere is now probably tied for my #1 spot, along with The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I do not think that I could pick between the two. At the most basic level, this is the story of Joan, who is one of the first women to be recruited as part of NASA's space shuttle program in the 1980s. It's about her professional journey and her personal journey. And really, this book is about love in all of its various forms. I absolutely loved the themes and the storytelling and the characters. This was so moving, and I could go on and on about it, but I'm gonna save it for a future reading wrap up. The follow-up to that question, and a juicy one at that, is what's the worst book you've read so far this year? The worst book that I read this year, I hated so much that I couldn't finish it, and that's such a feat for me. This is the only book that I have DNF'd this year. And I really gave this one my all. I tried so hard to get into it, but it wasn't happening, and that is The Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. This is a nonfiction book that desperately tries to connect the 2 stories of the architect behind the 1890 something Chicago World's Fair and a serial killer that was lurking in the Chicago area at the same time. This had the purplest of prose. The text was so dense and the narrative was tangential. It felt like I was reading two books mashed up into one, and I didn't like it. This is a very popular nonfiction book. Most people actually love it. I wish that I had, but what can you do? If you would like to know my worst book that I actually finished, stick around for the answer to my most disappointing book. Next question, what's a new release that you haven't gotten to yet but want to read? I've done a pretty good job of keeping up with new releases in the first half of the year. I would say that I have read almost all of my most anticipated ones within 1 to 2 months of them coming out, but there's one that I have yet to get to, and that is Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan, which is the third and final book in the Skyland series. I loved the first 2 books. I thought that they were fantastic adult romances, and this one is gonna follow Hendrix, who is the third member of this trio of friends. From the previous 2 books, I know that Hendrix is a very big personality. She's an entrepreneur. She is a very loyal friend, and I'm excited to read about her love journey and to learn just more about her. Moving on to what's the best sequel you've read so far in 2025? I have technically only read one sequel this year, and I did really enjoy it, but I want to answer this question with a prequel because I feel like that's along the same lines, and this should not be surprising at all. Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Look, I love The Hunger Games, even more as an adult than I did as a teenager, even though this is considered YA. This will forever be one of my favorite series of all time. This newest installment has been written 15 years after the original trilogy was published, and it's written as if Suzanne Collins was planning it the entire time, but I do not think she was. I think she's just that fucking good. This added so much depth to the rest of the series, and it was so good. All right, next we have what's been the biggest surprise of the year. Okay, I think people usually answer this with a book that they didn't expect to love, but surprisingly did enjoy, right? I'm gonna answer with a book that I was not prepared to read. Like, I couldn't have possibly anticipated what was waiting for me inside of those pages, and that is Rejection by tulathimutte. This is a collection of 6 short stories surrounding shame and rejection. I have never felt so shocked, disgusted, caught off guard, called out, and enamored by a book all at once. This book is truly a one-of-a-kind experience, and it certainly took me by surprise. This is not a book that I broadly recommend. It's for just like the right type of weirdo, but it did perfectly fit the question, so I had to include it. In the opposite vein, I have what's been the biggest disappointment of the year. Without a doubt, I knew the answer immediately, and that's gonna be Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. This book has very mixed reviews online. You either love it or you hate it, or you're middle of the road on it, and I really didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. This is the first Emily Henry book that I wanted to DNF. I had to trudge my way through it. But I kept on going because, one, I like to be part of the larger conversation and I knew everyone would be reading this. But 2, I was reading this book with my best friend as we were traveling together. And while I didn't like really anything about this book, I loved getting to talk about it in real time with someone as she was physically reading it next to me. That made it all worth it. But yeah, I was bored the entire time, and I never would have guessed that I would feel that way about an Emily Henry book, so it was very disappointing indeed. Who is a new favorite author? Here's the thing, I don't have an answer to this question because I haven't read more than one book from any new to me author this year. And I feel like for me to claim someone as a new favorite author, I have to have read at least 2 books by them that I've loved, ideally more. So the way that I would like to answer this question is by telling you a new author that I'm excited to read more from, and I have 2. The first one is M.L. Wang. I read Blood Over Brighthaven very early on in the year. I think it might have been the first book that I read this year. I really want to read Sword of Kaigen. I have this feeling, for whatever reason, that I'm gonna like it more than Blood Over Brighthaven, and I really, really liked Blood Over Brighthaven. The second author that I'm really curious to read more from is Percival Everett. He wrote James, and I gave James 5 stars. The other 2 books that I'm interested in are Erasure and Trees. Circling back to something that we discussed earlier, what's a book that made you cry? I already talked about Atmosphere, which brought me to tears because of its tenderness and because of its discussion around love and human connection. But the book that I actually want to answer for this question, I cried because it made me so sad. Actually, I'm gonna go get it. And that book is Cockroaches by Scholastique Mukasonga. I've talked about this book a lot on my channel because I rarely hear anyone else talk about it, and I think that's such a shame. This is a memoir. It's a first-hand account of the Rwandan genocide, and it made me cry because of the reality behind it, the knowledge that the events that happen in here actually took place. And if I think too much about it, I will be in tears again. So I'm gonna move on from this question, but this is a beautiful book and I highly recommend. Changing course. What's a book that made you happy? Okay, this is a book that I read really recently, and it would have worked perfectly for the question about my biggest surprise because I was not expecting to like this the way that I did. Nope, love it the way that I did. And that is Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. I am not a huge Ali Hazelwood fan like most people. I really disliked one of her books, Bride, and I thought another one of her books was just kind of meh. But this one was so fun. It was so cute. It was so adorable. I loved it. It's YA, but it's upper YA. It's new adult. This was such a blast. It's essentially about 2 18-year-olds who compete against one another in chess and fall in love in the process. I love anything with a competitive edge to it. It brings me so much joy. I love games, I love romance, I love smart characters, and this had all of that and more. So yes, it definitely made me very happy. Next question, what are you hoping to read by the end of this year? To answer this question, I would like to refer back to my 2025 TBR that I made at the start of the year. I had listed 20 books, and so far I have read 7 of those books, which is not fantastic, but it's also not terrible. Realistically, I will not get to all of the remaining ones on here before the end of the year, but a lot of these would work really well for the fall, so let's take a look. An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir is one that is high priority for me, but I don't want to start that one until I complete another series that I'm already in the middle of. Seven Eves by Neil Stephenson, I will 100% be reading before the end of the year because I promised my best friend that I would. The Will of the Many, I would like to read that right before its sequel, The Strength of the Few, comes out in November. Iron Gold, yeah, I really want to finish that series. this fall or winter really badly. Ministry of Time would be a good fall read. The Count of Monte Cristo, that's the only book that I've physically bought this year, and I don't think I'm gonna finish it by the end of 2025, but I'm really hoping to at least start that book this year. Us Against You would be a really great winter read, so that could be something that I read in December, or at the very least winter 2025, 2026. The Quiet Tenant is a thriller, and I'm hoping to read that in October. And then we have the third book in the Magnolia Park series. I don't really know when I'm gonna get to that. Final question, and one that I'm so excited for: who are some booktubers that you've been watching a lot of this year? I watch a lot of booktube, so it would be impossible for me to list every single channel on here. I'm gonna cap it at 5, and I'm only gonna list people that I've never mentioned before on my channel. But just know that there are so many more that I love. In an effort to not go on and on and on about each person that I wanna mention, I'm gonna format this by saying, if you like X, Y, and Z, go subscribe to boom. And really what I'm telling you is to subscribe to all 5 of these people. Here we go. If you like a calming presence / voice, a diverse range of books, and really well thought out reviews, go check out Libraries and Lattes. If you like an old soul, excellent camera work, a fresh perspective on booktube, and fantasy, go check out Thomas Howell. If you like nonfiction book recommendations, really articulate reviews, and a chill vibe, go check out Audrey Approved. If you like fun vlogs, great editing, and an infectious energy, go check out Mix Library. Lastly, if you like lit fic, cozy reading vlogs, and someone else with a really comforting voice / demeanor, go check out Lit with Cat. I watch all 5 of those channels religiously, and you should too. And that wraps up this tag. Hi, it's me. My camera battery died at the very last second. So I just wanted to say, if you watched this video all the way through, thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.